I, 28F, have a complicated history with my sister-in-law, Jane, 30F. We went to the same high school where she was one of the popular girls, and I was more of a quiet bookworm type. Our high school years were a stark contrast. Jane was always surrounded by friends, involved in cheerleading and student government, while I spent most of my time in the library or science club. Jane and her friends would often make fun of me for my clothes, braces, and general awkwardness. I remember one particularly humiliating incident during our sophomore year when Jane accidentally spilled her lunch tray on me in the cafeteria. The laughter of her friends still echoes in my memory. It wasn't constant bullying, but there were definitely hurtful comments and exclusion over the years that impacted my self-esteem. I had a small group of close friends who helped me get through those tough years. My best friend Lisa was always there for me, defending me against Jane's group whenever she could. We'd spend weekends watching sci-fi movies and working on school projects, trying to ignore the social hierarchy that seemed to dominate our high school experience. After graduation, I was relieved to leave that chapter of my life behind. I didn't see Jane for several years after that. I went off to college studying computer science at a university across the state. Those years were transformative for me. I gained more confidence, made new friends who appreciated me for who I was, and discovered my passion for coding. I threw myself into my studies and internships, determined to build a successful career. My hard work paid off, and I eventually landed a great job as a software engineer at a growing tech company. I was proud of how far I'd come from that insecure high school girl. I met my now husband, Kevin, 32M, at a tech conference about 4 years ago. He was giving a presentation on AI ethics, and I was immediately impressed by his intelligence and charisma. We started chatting at the post-conference mixer and really hit it off. We exchanged numbers and started dating soon after. Kevin and I bonded over our shared love of technology, hiking, and terrible sci-fi movies. He was kind, funny, and made me feel valued in a way I'd never experienced before. As our relationship grew more serious, we started talking about our families and backgrounds. A few months in, Kevin mentioned that he had a sister named Jane. When he described her as outgoing and social, I had a sinking feeling it might be the same Jane from high school. I tried to brush it off as a coincidence, but when Kevin showed me a photo, my stomach dropped. It was definitely her. I was hesitant to tell Kevin about our history at first, not wanting to cause drama or color his perception of his sister. But as things got more serious between us, I knew I had to be honest. One night over dinner, I explained the situation to him, how Jane had bullied me in high school and the impact it had on me. Kevin was understanding and assured me that Jane had grown up a lot since high school. He said she'd had some humbling experiences in college that made her reevaluate how she treated people. While I appreciated his perspective, I couldn't help but feel anxious about potentially having Jane in my life again. The first time I saw Jane again was at a family dinner at Kevin's parents' house about a year into our relationship. My palms were sweating as we walked up to the door. When Jane opened it, I saw the flash of recognition in her eyes. It was pretty awkward at first. I could tell Jane was uncomfortable too. We were polite but distant with each other throughout dinner. Over the next couple years, Jane and I maintained a cordial but cool relationship. We'd make small talk at family gatherings, but never really connected or became friends. Kevin encouraged us to try to move past the high school stuff, but I just couldn't fully let my guard down around her. There was always that lingering memory of how she'd treated me. I tried to keep things in perspective. We were adults now, and high school was a long time ago. But every time Jane would make a joke at my expense or give me a backhanded compliment, I'd be transported back to those insecure teenage years. I didn't want to make waves in Kevin's family, so I just tried to limit my interactions with Jane as much as possible. About 6 months ago, Jane got engaged to her boyfriend Ryan, 31M. I'd only met Ryan a handful of times at family events, but he seemed nice enough. I congratulated Jane when I heard the news, but didn't expect to be very involved in the wedding planning or anything. So I was surprised when Jane reached out and invited me to lunch, just the two of us. Part of me wanted to decline, but Kevin encouraged me to go, saying it could be a chance to clear the air. At lunch, Jane apologized for how she treated me in high school. She said she had been immature and insecure back then, and she felt awful about it now. She also said she wanted us to have a better relationship as sisters-in-law. I appreciated the apology and told her I was willing to move forward. Jane then invited me to join her bachelorette trip to Greece with some of her friends. I was hesitant at first, but she seemed sincere about wanting to bond. She talked about how it would be a great opportunity for us to get to know each other better as adults. Against my better judgment, I agreed to go, thinking it could be a chance for us to start fresh. For the next few months, Jane and I texted occasionally about trip planning. She'd send me links to restaurants she wanted to try or excursions she was considering. She never mentioned anything about costs or expectations for who would pay for what. I assumed we'd each be covering our own expenses, as is typically the case for these types of trips. The day we were supposed to leave for the trip, I met Jane and her friends at the airport. As we were going through security, Jane casually mentioned that she hoped my credit cards worked internationally since I'd be covering all the expenses for the trip. I was shocked and asked what she meant. Jane then informed me that she had assumed I would be paying for everything: flights, hotels, meals, activities, for her entire group of 6 friends. She said she picked an expensive destination because she knew I could afford it with my fancy tech job. I was completely blindsided by this. We had never discussed anything like that. I told Jane there was no way I could pay for an entire luxury vacation for 7 people. She got upset and said I was being stingy and ruining her bachelorette trip. Her friends were awkwardly standing there as we argued. Jane said things like, "Come on, we all know you make way more money than any of us. Stop being so selfish." I was hurt and angry that Jane would put me in this position. It brought back all those feelings of being manipulated and taken advantage of in high school. I ended up telling Jane I wouldn't be going on the trip and left the airport. When I got home, I told Kevin what happened. He was furious with Jane for putting me in that position. He called his parents to let them know what Jane had done. They were also very upset with her behavior. Jane has been blowing up my phone, accusing me of ruining her bachelorette trip and embarrassing her in front of her friends. She's saying I'm selfish and a bad sister-in-law. Some of her messages have even referenced our high school history, saying things like, "I guess you're still the same jealous loser you always were." Kevin's parents told Jane that her behavior was unacceptable and that she needs to apologize to me. But so far, she's shown no signs of remorse. Instead, she seems to be doubling down and trying to paint herself as the victim. I feel bad that the trip got ruined, but I don't think I did anything wrong by refusing to bankroll an entire vacation I never agreed to pay for. Kevin is fully supporting me, but Jane is making me out to be the villain to other family members and mutual acquaintances. This whole situation has brought up a lot of old insecurities for me. Part of me feels like I'm back in high school, being bullied and excluded by Jane and her friends. But another part of me is proud that I stood up for myself and didn't let her take advantage of me. Hey, Idia, for not paying for the bachelorette trip and leaving Jane and her friends stranded at the airport. Update. It's been about 2 weeks since the airport incident, and things have only gotten messier. Jane has been on a smear campaign, telling anyone who will listen that I'm a selfish, stingy person who ruined her bachelorette trip out of jealousy. She's been posting vague, passive-aggressive stuff on social media about fake family and true colors. At first, I tried to take the high road and not engage. I didn't want to stoop to her level or get drawn into a public drama. But then people started reaching out to me asking what happened, so I decided to tell my side of the story. I explained to family and mutual friends that Jane had sprung this expectation on me at the last minute without any prior discussion. Most people have been understanding and agree that Jane was out of line. My college friend Lisa, who knew about my history with Jane, was particularly supportive. She reminded me of how far I've come since high school and encouraged me not to let Jane's antics get to me. Kevin's parents are still firmly on our side. They told Jane that if she doesn't stop badmouthing me, they won't be contributing financially to her wedding. This was a big deal because they had originally offered to pay for a significant portion of the wedding expenses. Jane threw a fit about this, saying they were choosing me over her. She accused them of playing favorites just because I have a good job. The situation has caused a lot of tension in Kevin's family. His younger brother Tom, 26M, initially sided with Jane, saying I should have just paid for the trip to keep the peace. Tom and Jane have always been close, so I wasn't surprised by his reaction. But after Kevin explained everything in detail, including our high school history that Tom hadn't known about, Tom came around and apologized for jumping to conclusions. Jane's fiancé Ryan has been oddly quiet throughout all of this. Kevin tried reaching out to him to smooth things over, but Ryan was pretty cold and dismissive. We later found out from Tom that Ryan and Jane have been fighting a lot ever since the bachelorette trip fell through. Apparently, Ryan is upset that Jane expected me to foot the bill for such an expensive trip without discussing it with him first. Last weekend, we had a family dinner at Kevin's parents' house. It was supposed to be a chance for everyone to clear the air and move forward. Jane and Ryan were supposed to come but backed out at the last minute. Kevin's mom told us that Jane is now demanding that they increase their contribution to the wedding budget to make up for the embarrassment of the canceled bachelorette trip. They refused, which led to another big argument. I'm starting to worry that this whole situation is going to permanently damage my relationship with Kevin's family. His parents and Tom have been great, but some of the extended family members seem to be buying into Jane's version of events. At a recent family gathering, I overheard Kevin's aunt making comments about how I should have been more generous given my lavish lifestyle. It hurt to hear that, especially since Kevin and I live quite modestly despite my good salary. Kevin assures me that anyone who really knows Jane will see through her lies, but it still stresses me out. I've always been anxious about fitting in with his family, given my introverted nature and the age gap between Kevin and me. This whole drama has amplified those insecurities. To make matters worse, I found out that Jane has been bringing up our high school history to paint me as a long-standing enemy. She's telling people that I've always been jealous of her and that I deliberately sabotaged her bachelorette trip as revenge. It's frustrating because I thought we had moved past all that ancient history. Kevin and I are trying to rise above the drama, but it's hard when Jane seems determined to make me the bad guy. We're considering skipping the wedding altogether at this point, but we don't want to give Jane more ammunition. I'm not sure what the right move is here. Part of me wants to confront Jane directly and clear the air, but Kevin thinks that will only make things worse. For now, we're just taking it day by day and trying not to let Jane's antics get to us. But I'd be lying if I said it wasn't putting a strain on things. I'm grateful for Kevin's unwavering support through all of this. He's been my rock, reassuring me that I did nothing wrong and that he's proud of me for standing up for myself. I've been throwing myself into work as a distraction, but it's hard to focus sometimes with all this family drama swirling around. I'm trying to. Stay positive and remember that this will all blow over eventually, but some days are harder than others. Update 2. Things have taken an unexpected turn in the past week. Jane and Ryan's wedding, which was supposed to be next month, has been called off. We found out from Kevin's parents that Ryan ended the engagement. Apparently, the bachelorette trip drama was the last straw for him. He told Jane he couldn't marry someone who would try to take advantage of family members like that. He was also upset about how Jane had been behaving in the aftermath, spreading lies and trying to turn people against me. From what we've heard, Ryan had been having doubts for a while. He felt that Jane had become increasingly entitled and demanding throughout the wedding planning process. The bachelorette trip incident just confirmed his fears about her character. Jane is not taking the breakup well at all. She showed up at Kevin's parents' house in hysterics, alternating between crying and screaming about how this was all my fault. Kevin's parents tried to calm her down, but she was inconsolable. She ended up staying the night there because she was too upset to drive home. The next day, Jane started blowing up Kevin's phone with angry messages. She accused him of choosing me over his own sister and ruining her life. She brought up childhood memories, saying things like, "Remember when I took care of you when you had chicken pox? This is how you repay me?" Kevin finally had enough and blocked her number. He told his parents that he needs some space from Jane for a while. I feel terrible about the whole situation, even though I know logically that it's not my fault. Kevin keeps reminding me that Jane brought this on herself with her entitled behavior and refusal to take responsibility for her actions. Still, I can't help but feel a twinge of guilt. I never wanted things to escalate to this point. Kevin's parents are caught in the middle of everything. They're trying to support Jane through the breakup while also maintaining boundaries. They've made it clear to her that her behavior towards me was unacceptable and that she needs to make amends if she wants to repair her relationships with the family. But they're also worried about Jane's mental state and don't want to abandon her when she's struggling. The situation has stirred up a lot of old family dynamics. Kevin's mom confided in me that Jane has always been the more demanding child, often overshadowing Kevin's needs when they were growing up. She said she feels partly responsible for enabling Jane's behavior over the years. It was a surprisingly candid conversation that gave me more insight into the family's history. Tom has been trying to play peacemaker, but it's a tough position for him. He's close to Jane, but also sees how unreasonable she's been. He's been checking in on her regularly and reported back that she's not doing well. Apparently, she's talking about quitting her job and moving back home, which has Kevin's parents worried. As for me, I'm struggling with mixed emotions. On one hand, I feel vindicated that the truth about Jane's behavior has come to light. On the other hand, I never wanted to be the cause of such upheaval in Kevin's family. I'm trying to be supportive of Kevin as he navigates this difficult situation with his sister, but it's challenging when I'm at the center of the conflict. Kevin and I have been having long talks about family, boundaries, and how we want to handle these kinds of situations in the future. It's brought us closer in some ways, but it's also been a stressful test of our relationship. We're both committed to getting through this together, but it hasn't been easy. For now, we're keeping our distance and trying to let things settle down. I'm hoping that this will be a wake-up call for Jane and that maybe she'll do some self-reflection. But given her track record, I'm not holding my breath. We'll just have to wait and see how things unfold from here. In the meantime, I'm trying to focus on the positive aspects of my life. My job, my relationship with Kevin, and the support of friends and family members who have stood by us through this ordeal. It's been a stark reminder of how far I've come since those difficult high school days, and how important it is to surround yourself with people who truly care about you.